Well, welcome back, everybody. This is a video. I want to give a clarification because I had prayed about some things that really current events that I had shared some videos previously. You know, God had clarified some things to me. So way back in March, the middle of March of 2025, I had shared a video about the future of America. This doesn't necessarily have to be America itself, but I want to just kind of go back over what was shown. So what was shown to me in this video was that there was went to a prophetic activation conference and paired up with somebody else, and we talked about things we saw. And so what was said during that time was that there's going to be a period of time. So this was back in March, the middle of March of 2025. And God had shown me, the first vision was a ranch house. Someone that's growing, some kind of crop or livestock or something like that. And he had shown me back in March that this house or this ranch, and then he showed me the next vision. There was two things. There was a single blade of wheat, like the actual stalk of the wheat, and then the grain at the top of it. And then he showed me a cow, like a large, healthy looking cow. And then he showed me a couple other visions after that. The next one was he showed me basically like a circle. There's a circle-like thing, and I shared it previously in the video. And then that circle thing kind of flipped around and zoomed way out. So I was looking straight at the top of it. And it became a whole bunch of, they were so small, it eventually became a whole bunch of lights. So this was basically, what it was these tiny communities, or like tiny home communities, built around a little center circle. And then as you zoom out, it was like all across this land, whatever this land was. It could be, it could be United States, it could be Europe, it could be Australia, whatever it was. Didn't really show me that it was American necessarily. In any event, so that's kind of what he showed me. And then the last thing was when I got to get this other person, was that he showed me that there was going to be a time period after this that the word of God was going to become, as you preach it, it was going to become like gold, like an oil, like a balm on people. So they're going to be very receptive to things being preached. And as you go to, and he's basically showed me like an old airplane, like an open cockpit airplane, and it was flying to these different villages and then dropping this gold oil. And so I perceive that as actually the word of God, that it's gonna be rare, and people are gonna want to hear the word of God preached in these tiny communities. That's kind of the vision he showed me. Now, when I asked God about it recently, he said, what he showed me was that this single blade of wheat and the actual cow, that refers to Joseph, where Joseph, 3 different times he talked about, first of all, his dream with his parents and his family was doubled. There was 2 different dreams. And then when he was in prison, he had 2 different dreams. So that was referring to a time period. The last dream was Pharaoh's. Joseph showed him basically the 7 years of famine, the 7 years of harvesting and the 7 years of famine. So that was the 3rd dream that Joseph had shown. And they were all very aligned very similarly. 2 different dreams, very similar. And then the actual things in the dream represented years. So the 7 cows and the 7 heads of grain were actually the 7 years. In this case, for me, what it's saying is that we were gonna have 1 year of prosperity. And that year of prosperity, this was starting back in middle of March of 2025. God doesn't exactly do things completely on the dot. It could very likely be referring to a time period, let's say March or maybe even as late as June, where a time period's gonna end of prosperity. And then we're going to get into something else. He had also, in different things he had shown me over a time period, I'm going to get into what some of these things are, but he actually showed me that those communities, those small communities, are going to pop up, and they're going to be all over these rural areas. And I thought, well, what could that possibly be? And I'm just throwing out ideas of what they could be. Is that the first thing is that there could be, in America, we've had these states, Republican and Democrat states, are doing a lot more gerrymandering. So they're basically, these states are becoming either completely solid blue or completely solid red. The blue ones have cities with very large populations. That would be New York, Massachusetts, California, Illinois. and we've even got a communist mayor in New York City now. These cities could have a lot of strife. They could have a lot of they could basically try to separate from the union, like without doing it legally ways. Like Texas obviously has a referendum, and they could separate at any year now if they choose to. And so these blue areas could be a thing where they decide to revolt against the United States government, and they just say we're going to do our own thing without really doing it legally, and it could cause a big, problem with Trump or whoever the president is in office. Elon Musk has also referred to UBC, where because of the rise of extremely cheap robots and a artificial intelligence, where we could actually, most humans could be phased out of jobs. So there could be a, let's say, $20,000 universal basic income that people would earn. And we could also have a complete collapse of the Wall Street and the current financial market in the United States, which is like a Babylon system of Babylon. A lot of people have been suggesting that Trump is basically trying to tie our financial systems to Bitcoin and crypto and possibly some other things that could completely crash. They could basically write off the $30 trillion into crypto and some other things that the value could go down to zero. That's a possibility. These things are all possible. That's the need where things can come up in the future, where there could be a financial collapse. There could be so much strife in these larger cities where people are forced for security reasons to go into, it could be food supply issues in cities, or it could be just the chaos going on in cities. They could allow foreign armies, like they could agree to let the Communist Chinese Party come into LA, San Francisco, New York. They could actually start taking over places, and it could become a huge, big deal where our country is very unstable as a country. And, other things like assassinations, and there's many reasons our country could go up, people could go upside down financially. And that, let's say, whether it's UBC or some kind of strife in the country, or a collapse of Wall Street and the market, the Babylon system in America, they would basically go upside down and basically have nothing or next to nothing. Let's say a president in the future, almost like FDR did with the parks, or I think it was Teddy Roosevelt, and FDR did with later on, we could basically create laws, whoever's in power, a new president or Trump maybe, to create small parcels of land and tiny home communities that people could live. Let's say they could buy a plot for $5,000 and then build a tiny home for $20,000, and that's a place they could live. I actually know the person that created the Universal Building Code. I know the person that created the tiny home laws in that community, for that UBC, which is basically this law governs, I think it's over the world, a ways of safety of building houses and stuff. So in most places in America, I think this is actually in effect, except for places that have hurricanes and things like that. So he actually wrote the code for that. So this is a reason why these people can, in the future, possible reasons they could live in small communities with tiny homes, and as I had said previously in that video, the whole point of this I want to really share is that we should, first of all, trust in God. If you're not saved, if you haven't given your life over to Jesus, to do that. And secondly is to pray to God, to ask him, hey, where should I live? I'd also shared in a video that it appears to me in a 1 or 2 year time frame that there's going to be a strong possibility. I had shared in previous videos of that there was going to be, God had shown me there's going to be an attack. He'd given me the spoken word. There's going to be an attack on the civilian populations of Oakland, which would kind of fit in with the instability in large cities, or in Democrat-controlled cities especially, and that there would be a need to escape. And I basically said, God had also given me was pack your bags. So it seems like there's going to be a period in our country of instability, especially Oakland, for instance. That's going to, God had told me, hey, give me that word. That's what's going to happen. So I want to make sure that people pray, that they're seeking God with all their heart, and on financial decisions, that you pray that whatever form of currency, of something that was going to hold its value, to seek God and ask him what you should do, whether it's silver, gold, whatever it is, household goods, or, whatever God tells you to do. And secondly, to sowing and reaping is a process that always is true. So it doesn't matter if it's famine, doesn't matter what time period it is. Isaac was reaped 100 times as much when he had sown, and God had given him favor to do that. So those are concepts that are always true. So whatever God tells you to do, though, just do it. And I encourage you to seek after him, to get a personal relationship with him so you hear his voice clearly. Encourage everybody with that so you can take caution. And it's not to scare you, but it's to help you to make the best decision. And obviously God is going to give you the best decisions, to put it up to him and see what he says. But these are sure to happen. And I just wanted to encourage everybody to stay faithful and to seek God with all your heart during this time. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.